This video is going to be on cellular respiration, the process by which cells make energy using this process of cellular respiration. They generate energy in the form of a substance called ATP, and they use biological molecules. The most used reactant is that of glucose, but other reactants can be used as well, such as fats or other sugars. There's an overall reaction which we're going to look at, which involves glucose being reacted with oxygen to produce the byproducts of carbon dioxide and water, of course also ATP. So here is our balanced reaction. 6 oxygen plus 1 glucose gives us 6 CO2 and 6 waters. There's actually in fact 2 ways in which cellular respiration works. We have aerobic, which uses oxygen, and anaerobic, which does not use oxygen. Both are used by many different organisms and are found in prokaryotes or eukaryotes. So ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, is its full name. This is the form of the molecule that is made in cellular respiration. We can see here from the diagram that there are several different components. We have the 3 phosphates, we have a sugar, which is ribose, and we have the adenosine, a base. So it is similar to a nucleotide, but with 3 phosphates connected. We can think of this as the currency of the cell in terms of energy. The cell makes it, then uses it, makes it again, and uses it. It's a very simple process. When we have ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate, we cause a few different reactions and we add a new phosphate group to create ATP. That adds energy within the ATP. Then, when we need that energy, we cleave off one of the phosphates and that releases the energy, reforming ADP, which then can be converted back to ATP. And the cell can use this ATP energy in many different processes, such as active transport of substances, which happens in nerves and many other cells, and reactions that require more energy, like the addition of amino acids to transfer RNA for cells to make proteins. So we're going to focus on anaerobic respiration in this video. So anaerobic respiration, we said, does not use oxygen. And it generates a net total of 2 ATP. Not very much per glucose, but still enough because this process is very, very fast. Cells would do this when they need to make a large amount of energy quickly. And this short process, but low yield, is enabling us to do that because we do not require the oxygen. So we don't have to do all the key processes you require to get more energy from the glucose using oxygen. And we're going to look at 2 different types of reaction. The reaction for humans and the reaction for yeasts. So first up, humans. A process called glycolysis, which is similar in all cells, will take the glucose, which is a 6-carbon compound, and make 2 pyruvate, which are 3-carbon compounds. And pyruvate in humans will be converted to lactic acid. Now, to convert pyruvate to lactic acid, you have to reduce it. So we need something to be oxidized, and that is our NADH. Our NADH is the reduced form of NAD+. So when pyruvate is reduced to lactic acid, at the same time the NADH is oxidized to NAD+. The reason we do this is because NAD+ is required for glycolysis to work. And the buildup of lactic acid is what occurs in your muscles when you're doing exercise, because when you need to do exercise, there is a large amount of energy required for muscle contraction. So doing anaerobic respiration, you can get the energy quicker, but does cause a toxic byproduct to be formed, and that is our lactic acid. At the end of exercise, you breathe in heavily, not only to re-establish oxidative form of respiration, aerobic, but to also oxidize lactic acid back to pyruvate. So this requires oxygen. So the reason we breathe in heavily is to get rid of our lactic acid back to pyruvate so we can enter aerobic respiration. And this use of oxygen is our oxygen debt. So then yeast. Yeast is a very important idea. And actually, anaerobic respiration is referred to as fermentation. Fermentation is a very important industrial process. And it has a similar pathway. Glycolysis is exactly the same, with a 6-carbon molecule, our glucose, being converted to pyruvate. But here, pyruvate gets converted to acetaldehyde, a 2-carbon, which is then converted to ethanol. So when pyruvate is converted to acetaldehyde, it has a decarboxylation step, a removal of a carbon, and this is removed in the form of CO2. Now, CO2 is a very important product in this process. It's the reason when we use yeast for making bread, the bread rises. All those little pockets you see in bread are actually pockets of CO2. And as it rises, it allows those pockets of CO2 to expand. And then acetaldehyde is reduced to ethanol. And at the same time, this oxidizes our NADH back to NAD+, allowing that NAD+ to go back into glycolysis and continue this process. And of course, our end product here, ethanol, although toxic at high enough levels to the yeast, is very important in terms of industry for making alcoholic beverages and using it in many other productions of making alcohols for industry use. So our review. In this video, we learned about the idea of cellular respiration generating cell energy in the form of ATP, the fact there is an oxygen using version called aerobic, and an anaerobic respiration which does not use oxygen, which we focus on the different reactions involved there. And then the byproduct in humans is lactic acid. That's what builds up in your muscles, and that's why your muscles hurt after exercise. And yeast produces both carbon dioxide and ethanol, which has very many different industrial uses. So this is our introduction to cellular respiration. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. And next time we will move on to the ideas of aerobic respiration. Until next time.